Welcome back to another episode of Fail or Fire, Out of the Theater edition. This is going to be our first Out of the Theater review. I'm your host, Thundarius. I'm joined by my absolutely kick-ass co-hosts,
Shades.
And the ultimate timeline's Dylan.
and we are Cyber Skull Media. This is going to be the first video we have shot all together. This should be real interesting.
What do you mean? We're always together.
That's right. It's our studio.
First thing I have to say is this is much nicer than a Honda Odyssey. What we are going to give you today is our non-spoiler review. Then we'll go into spoilers. So if you haven't seen this yet, you can still watch the first half of this video and we will let you know when we go into spoiler talk, because there will definitely be spoiler talk. But first, we saw this in IMAX 3D. So we waited until Saturday to see it in IMAX 3D, which means they were either out of buckets and drinks or our AMC didn't get them. Either way, I'm pissed. If anybody watching this has extra, let us know in the comments and hook Fundy up. What did you boys think of the IMAX 3D? Is it worth going to see?
Absolutely. I think that'd be the preferred format to see this in. The movie's such a huge scope. The 3D was amazing. It utilized, even just for depth, even with the scenes that didn't have a ton of action or stuff flying at you, just the depth that you get in the IMAX is beautiful.
Trash. I don't like 3D movies at all. This was only my second 3D movie ever. At one point, I seen some cool looking stuff, but then I noticed why I seen these cool things and it all went away. Screen itself, like what I was looking at, looked more crisp, I think. Like he was saying, the depth, that made it cooler. But other than that, nothing was really 3D for me. Just, I will say, IMAX though, the giant screen, as long as you're not sitting like this, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty dope.
So I'm gonna marry these two together right here. You guys want to hold hands like something that happened in the movie?
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, fine.
IMAX 3D. If you like 3D movies, you're gonna love this. It was shot very well for 3D. If you're not a fan of it, I would just go see regular IMAX at that point. As far as how IMAX and 3D works, it's never like popping out at you, but there's a lot more depth on the screen. And when it was like still stuff or slow motion, it looked great. Where it kind of falls apart is when there's a ton of fast action. It all just kind of becomes a blur. So I'll leave it up to you on that. If you like IMAX, if you like 3D, go check it out in at least one of those formats. Personally, I loved it. I didn't used to be able to see it because I always took my glasses off to put the 3D on. And then my astigmatism was like, you thought. And then one day I got the bright idea, why don't I just put them over my glasses? And then my world changed. Pro tips from Thundy. Now, for our non-spoiler reviews and our fail, fire, or just plain mid section of this review, let's start with Shades.
As far as the movie itself, probably a definite fire. Ryan Reynolds plays an awesome Deadpool. If for some reason they ever change that actor, I won't ever watch Deadpool again, period. He is Deadpool. And Wolverine coming back, it was pretty sweet how they did it. I'll give him that one. Yeah, just definite fire. I would say watch this movie.
I say absolute fire. In the realm of superhero movies, I think this is as close to perfection as you can get. Love seeing Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. Shades nailed it. Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. Just a great cast. Spoiler alert, Wolverine is in the movie. Has a pretty big cameo.
This is a non-spoiler review.
I know. I had to get that in there, though. We had to mention that Hugh Jackman is back.
I mean, is it really spoiler if they put it on billboards and everything?
This is a complete blind react. I have not seen anything other than posters. Going in with no expectations. I was pretty blown away. It's fire. It's about as close to a 10 out of 10 as I would give a movie.
You guys like my kick-ass shirt?
Pretty fancy.
Yeah.
I got all dressed up. A big Deadpool fan, big Wolverine fan. Wolverine was always, I was a basic bitch. Wolverine was always my favorite X-Men. The soundtrack was great. It was a typical, what you would expect from a Deadpool movie. Very well done. You could tell that the people involved with this movie actually gave a fuck about comics, about the characters, about most of what's come before. Let's save some of that for the spoiler talk. I've seen pretty much almost everything that has come out Marvel. I'm just gonna say this. This was the best Marvel movie since the Infinity Saga ended. Everything after that has been fucking garbage. They have been fail after fail after fail with a few mid highlights. And if you didn't follow everything from the shows, some of the other movies, there's going to be parts of this movie that you're not going to maybe understand, like the TVA and things of that nature. You might be a little lost in a couple spots, but it's still going to be a fun movie for you. I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10, but it's fire. This movie is fucking fire. You should definitely go see it. Don't wait. The cameos are going to be going leaked everywhere. Somehow we've avoided spoilers. I have been staying off X, and they're worth it. There's not as many cameos as I thought there was going to be. I thought this was just going to be nostalgia cameo porn. And while there was a lot of the we're going to tug on your heartstrings, there wasn't as many cameos as I thought there would be, but there was still a solid amount. Reynolds definitely makes this movie. Jackman makes this movie, and there's not much else I can say without going into spoiler territory. So go see it for yourself. It's definitely worth it. You're going to be kicking yourself if you don't, and I can't say that about a single purely Marvel movie since Infinity Saga. That's where we're at. Don't leave. Do not leave before the final post-credit scene. Don't do it. It's worth it. It makes a lot of the stuff in the movie even better.
How many people even left for theater?
None.
I would say
I thought I'd seen at least 2 or 3 get up and leave, but most everybody stayed.
that's the least amount of people I've seen get up and leave after a movie like this in a long time.
I always see people get up and leave. They're like, where are you guys going?
Like, it's not over yet. If you have not seen this movie, it is time for you to click away, unless you just don't care and you want one of the best Marvel movies to come out to be spoiled for you. Anybody want to talk about spoilers?
I'll jump into some, and I'll preface with I got to give props to Disney for letting this come out. They take some shots at Disney within the film. I was a little concerned that we were going to get a little bit of a watered down Deadpool. They pulled no punches. I was not expecting that. Pleasantly surprised. Cameos. My favorite cameo would be Gambit, just because of the humor and the running gag that brings to the surface. Channing Tatum in the long gestating Gambit film that never saw the light of day lends itself pretty well to some good punchlines.
He had a movie?
Yes, so for those who are unaware, there was supposed to be a Gambit movie starring Channing Tatum that was on again, off again, rumor mill for years, and it never came to fruition. So seeing Channing fucking Tatum show up as Gambit with that horrible accent was fantastic, and I loved it. So there's a lot of little things in there for people who are very up to date on everything. I think you'll really appreciate stuff like that.
The cameos, they caught me off guard for sure. At least 2. Blade and Gambit threw me the fuck off. Gambit for sure, because me not knowing anything about him doing any of this, at first I was confused because I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Who is that? But then I figured it out, and then I thought, what terrible voice accent. What is he doing? Like, all I could think was, my name's Def.
He's Cajun, man.
He's Cajun. Like, got that Cajun two-step.
Mon frere.
Visually, I think that he did well. Audible, I think they could have definitely put somebody else's voice in there for him.
I think that was the gag.
it was on purpose.
Yeah, I think that was the gag.
All right, well, maybe that'll make it a little bit better, and I'll watch it again, and it'll be funnier this time. But I was just like, I don't get it. But I mean, it did make me not like the movie. That part was off.
Blade.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about him other than I wasn't expecting him at all. Like, Blade was just poof, here I am.
I think the Blade cameo was kind of confusing because they're filming a new Blade with a different actor, and that's kind of like
that's
this.
never getting off the ground.
Right. Well, and that's kind of
never
the
getting
whole
off the ground.
The whole thing with the Channing Tatum film too, right? So
that's why he said, "I'm the only Blade."
yes,
Yeah.
they were
Like,
trying
well,
to
I mean,
reboot.
that's how it's got to be.
They were trying to reboot Blade with Mahershala Ali, Oscar-winning actor.
Who would be probably pretty good in the role, but
Yeah.
they decided they wanted to bait and switch it, make it all about his daughter. And then they went through, I don't know how many script changes to the point where it's kind of just dead in the water right now. As far as cameo talks, we had the Blade cameo, which was my second favorite cameo of all of it. Thought it was awesome. I wanted Blade in this movie so bad as Wesley Snipes. I miss Blade, Wesley Snipes. That movie always gets forgot about when they talk about early superhero movies, which this movie felt like a superhero movie we used to get.
Yep.
It was great. You had Johnny Storm as a bait and switch instead of Captain America, which with the way they had him dressed up, I'm like,
I totally thought it was Captain America.
I was like, that is not Captain America. They're going to bait and switch as he is Johnny Storm. And sure as shit, Johnny motherfucking Storm. That was fantastic. Elektra was cool to see. This movie seemed like almost a love letter to like the Fox universe. There's a lot of cameos from people from the Fox universe.
Fox sign in the void.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get to the void here in a minute. My favorite cameo of the entire thing was the Henry Cavill Wolverine. Please, Disney, Feige, pull the dildo out of your ass and give us Cavill as Wolverine. Please. I'm begging you. I knew Cavill was coming. That was an early leak from months ago, dude. Months ago. I need it, baby. Cavill's king of the motherfucking nerds. There's a couple I wish that we could have saw that we didn't. Aside from the Deadpool army, it was cool to get Dogpool, all these other Deadpools. Although they left out my favorite Deadpool, which is Pimppool. My favorite Deadpool.
He might have been in there. We just didn't see him.
Right? There's a lot of Easter eggs. There was a Thor helmet in the void. There was a whole bunch of cool stuff. Thor holding Deadpool. I bet that's going to be something from Secret Wars. But
Was that when he was bawling like a baby?
Yep. I expected the lady pool to be unmasked. So
yeah,
Was that the blonde chick?
yeah, so they cast Ryan Reynolds' wife as Lady Pool, which is like
are you
cool
is that
little Easter egg.
for certain? Did you see that in the credits?
Yes,
I didn't
yeah.
pay attention.
Not the baby Deadpool, but like the kid Deadpool was one of his kids. So his wife and one of his kids were in the army of Deadpools, but there was no reveal. So I was like, well,
Because that was
clever.
something that the internet was grumbling about. They're like, is it Taylor Swift? Is it Blake Lively? Is
Taylor
it somebody else? Everybody was like, who is it? And then they're like, I'm not gonna tell you. And
and there's no
unless you look at the
reveal. So that
credits.
was pretty ballsy.
I feel like I need an extended cut of this. I want there to be an extended cut released for this with another like half hour worth of footage that they didn't use. Because you know who else was supposedly in it that I saw and there was no reveal? The dude from Always Sunny that he owns that soccer team with. Yeah, Mac. You know who plays Mac? Yeah, he's in it as a TV agent, and he made a post. He was like, I flew all these miles to come here and shoot this, and then I don't even see myself in the movie.
Also in the void, I spied what looked to be the Covenant, the ship from Alien, which is also a 20th Century Fox property that now is on Disney.
There's definitely the Gardens of the Galaxy ship.
Yeah.
There was a lot of different stuff if you're paying attention. City of Asgard, a lot of cool shit. You know, we start out with a kick-ass scene of him beating up the TVA. And if you don't know who the TVA is, you're going to be really confused. Like Shades. Shades has probably seen the least amount of the Marvel Universe movies out of all three of us. And I'm interested to know some of his thoughts about the TVA and some of the stuff going on and if it was confusing.
Oh, I knew nothing about the TVA. Like, it didn't make sense, but it made sense. You know, they were the police or whoever, and that's just kind of what I gathered out of it. I just took it as it was. I didn't question anything. I don't know.
I don't know how much Dylan's seen of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I've seen everything cinematically. I have not seen much from the series world. There's a lot of things that, you know, little nods to the series that have been on Disney that I'm not familiar with. I've seen all the theatrical releases, but yeah, not real brushed up on the TV series that Disney's put out.
So you didn't see Loki?
No, sir.
All right, so you didn't know the TVA either. I'm not a huge fan of the TVA. There was stuff in Loki I liked. There was a lot I didn't like, but that's not for this video. We see him beat him up. We get to see the corpse of Logan, and either one of you seen the Logan movie?
Yes, I've seen actually both. I've seen Logan, and then I've seen the black and white Logan Noir, which is super sweet.
Good. It was good. A lot of stuff in this movie to cover that could be really long. If people want it, we'll do a more in-depth review of this when it comes out digitally, and we can go through it and show a screenshot. But yeah, the gist of it, he doesn't get the Logan that he wants, but he gets the Logan that he apparently needs throughout the whole movie. They just did it really well. There's times where I'm like, it's about to start dragging, and then it picks back up again. You guys have any complaints with the movie?
I don't really have any complaints or critiques. You mentioned the Logan skeleton, probably the most creative opening credit sequence, using the bones to show the cast and the crew.
That looked great in 3D.
Yes. Yeah, I don't really have any complaints. The storyline, I said, it never really got to a point where it lulled. It's a 2-hour flick, so it's a little bit long on runtime, but that's pretty typical for Marvel. It felt pretty fast paced.
Except for the 23 minutes of trailers and bullshit before the movie even started. Biggest complaint of the whole thing was that.
Yeah, at least a dozen. I think we were like 10 to 12 trailers, and that's excessive.
I think my only complaints were they needed more guns and more fighting.
More fighting.
Ooh, why not?
Yeah,
They always use more in Deadpool.
There was a lot of fighting, and the fight choreography was great.
It was top notch. It didn't feel like it was overly CGI'd like a lot of Marvel lately has been. They've kind of, to be honest, I feel like they've botched a lot of their fight scenes with an over-reliance on digital. Looked like a lot of choreography and practical, so I was pretty stoked on that.
I'd say where there were parts where the CG wasn't great, overall, it was so much better than everything else we've gotten. Like just the part with her digging around in people's heads, that looked great. There's a couple times with Hugh Jackman fighting that didn't look so hot, and when he put the mask on, that was awesome. But there were some times where you're like, that is CGI as fuck. There's not as much of that complaint as I would have from something like a trashy Marvels movie that was just dog water. My other two biggest complaints were from, if I'm remembering it all correctly, the void is supposed to be the end of time, not some random void. It's supposed to be the end of time.
It's the TVA garbage dump.
But in the Loki series, they made it sound like this is the end of time and everything here is the end. This is where everything goes to die and it's going to end.
So don't watch Loki.
But this said it differently. With everything they did in that show, without going into spoilers there, I could see that there being a discrepancy in that, but I could also leave it up to we're going to do whatever we want, since that's kind of what Disney does anyway. I think if it wasn't Ryan Reynolds in charge, this wouldn't be as good as it was. I don't agree that, I don't think the sling rings would work there. I'm not that big of an expert on that type of stuff. I probably read the most comics I probably read of any character is Deadpool. There's definitely some things from the comics they've still not introduced that I would like. I'd like some more Bob from Hydra. One of my normally biggest critiques lately is there's not really a real villain. This movie kind of suffers from that, where I would rather have him have fought a big bad, but it all made sense with the story that they told. So I can't complain about it too much.
Tom Wamsgans from Succession is a villain.
Did you have a favorite part of the movie?
I dig the Wolverine and Deadpool throwdown in the minivan.
That was great.
That the choreography in super tight quarters right there. They throw down in a minivan. And it's a pretty extensive fight scene. Very well choreographed, very well shot in tight quarters. Overall, like I said, a lot of good stuff in the movie, but that was probably my favorite scene. It just was super well executed.
Dylan, do you know about card jitsu?
Damn it! I was gonna say we should not say anything about that.
I do not.
That's why that scene was actually my favorite too, just because of card jitsu. Definitely card jitsu. I was like, man, these guys they watch the same shit we do.
All I had to say was if card jitsu doesn't see this, get a Honda Odyssey and use it in card jitsu. They're fucking up. They're fucking up.
Yep.
Dogpool was pretty dope. It's hard to pick a favorite part because there was so much good shit. I liked seeing the mask come on. As far as sequels, threequels, whatever, this is probably one of the better ones that we have reviewed, at least with all the trailers that we've talked about. Hopefully some of those are good too. There were some trailers in the theater that were different from trailers we've reviewed that some of them were better. Well, you boys got anything else about Deadpool and Wolverine to talk about before we wrap this bitch up with a bow?
I had something and I lost it, so it must not have been that important.
Yeah.
You know what else you'd enjoy? Watching the rest of our Fail or Fire series. We cover movies, we cover movie trailers, we cover music. Sometimes we get blocked globally, but you know what? Fuck them.
You know why we get blocked?
Because they're haters.
Because we're misbehaving. My wife's gonna leave me.
I was like, shout out to Dylan's wife.
Emily, I'm sorry.
Anyways, I want you to go slash the fuck out of that like and subscribe button because we are in the hunt for 500 subscribers. We're almost there. We're doing a badass special live stream for it. Unless you boys got anything else, we're gonna roll on out of here because we got things to do. There's a lot of movies out there. There's a lot of music out there. Gotta take a look at all of it and let you guys know if it's a fail fire or just plain mid. So we're gonna roll on out of here and do that for guys. Oh my God, do you see that? So right after we stopped rolling, I remembered the one thing that I wanted to talk about, and it's how I think Shade needs to get Peter's piercings to make his OnlyFans better.
Terrible idea.
Tug that chain.
That's all I had.
Shit.